All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Fantasy Facts Podcast brought to you by Fantasy Data. This week, Seth and I are continuing our show from last week where we talked about players that will ruin your season. Except this week, we're talking about the 10 players that will lead you to a fantasy championship. Make sure you give the show a follow at the Fantasy Facts. Give Seth a follow at FF the At Home Dad, and I'm at Dynasty_Pat.
These are the Fantasy Facts with your hosts, Pat Loftus and Seth Keller.
Hey-o. We have a special show tonight. This week, I get to pick. I get to make two picks in the Scott Fishball. We are talking rounds 20 and 21, but we'll get to that in a second. First, welcome back, everybody. This is the Fantasy Facts Podcast. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at the Fantasy Facts. Find us on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you use the code FAQS, F-A-Q-S, at Underdog for a 100% deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. And make sure you use the code FAQS, F-A-Q-S, at fantasydata.com to receive 20% off your subscription purchase. Seth, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited for tonight's show because it's the inverse. Well, you're excited because you want to make your Scott Fishball.
Yeah.
This is
Absolutely.
the inverse for me. And actually it works out perfectly, your Scott Fishball piece, because if you're picking that late in the 20, 21, 22, you're swinging for the fences. And a lot of these guys that we're going to be talking about today are guys that you're swinging for the fences with. They're not guys that you're picking because they're safe. You're picking them because they have upside. They have the ability to change your season if they hit. And we'll talk about what they need to do in order to hit and what they could potentially become if they do hit. And that's what's exciting.
They are lottery tickets, especially in something seasonal like the Scott Fishbowl. These are the guys that are, these are your home run hitters. These are the guys that you want to break out because they're going to lead you to the playoffs and to a championship. So we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to pull up my current team so everybody gets to see what I'm working with here. Let's go over to this screen. Here we go. So I was picking out of the 12 spot. I went quarterback, running back, hammered wide receivers, and then tried to fill out the rest of the team here, going with Gordon, Freiermuth, Goff, McKissick. Went kicker in round 15, maybe a little early, but I took who I thought was the best kicker or second best kicker on the board. Then I started hammering wide receiver again, going after some guys that we're going to hit on the show a little bit later. But essentially, you can see here, rounds 4 through 7, I got my wide receiver ones. I've got my studs, the guys that I'm going to plug in every week. And over here, I'm going with some wide receiver 2s. I'm going guys with upside. Third-year guy like Devin Duvernay, who's coming off, progressively getting better every year.
Yep.
But let's jump into the draft here. All right. I am on the clock. And I've already got a kicker. I'm probably not going to draft another one. Let me see if I can make this slightly larger. How's that? Is that better? Can you see that there, Seth?
That's a little bit better, yeah.
All right, let's keep working here. We're doing it live.
Oh, there we go. Go. That's nice. Now I can read some names.
All right, here we go. So really, looking back at my team, I'm happy with my starting lineup, right? None of the guys I'm looking at here are starting week 1. I'm looking for guys that are home run hitters. I'm looking for the lottery tickets, right? So I'm going to rule out a lot of these guys right away. I'm not thinking a tight end here. None of those names really stand out. I want somebody who's probably tied to a good quarterback or potential breakout quarterback, or maybe a running back or a wide receiver that is an injury away or a game plan away from being the starter, right? So if I'm looking at this list, I immediately I go right to, for some reason, I go right to Kenyon Drake.
Mm-hmm.
And Raiders are a good to average to above average offense. Yes, Josh Jacobs is the bell cow. Drake, when healthy, can complement Josh Jacobs. They drafted Zamir White. I mean, there's some competition there, but if I scroll down a little bit more past the Myles Gaskin, here's kind of the next group of players. Again, a lot of kickers in here. None of these names really jump out to me, right? I'm looking for guys that, again, home run hitters, guys that are maybe an injury away. I don't see it. Maybe James Washington in Dallas to start the season. He's a risky play until Gallup comes back. But like if I look at just wide receivers, again, none of these names are like, yes, this is the guy. None of these guys really stand out. I don't like a Watkins, Hurts stack. I'm just, there's too many weapons in Jacksonville to take a fly here on Laviska Shenault. I don't see a name here. Like, I don't know. What do you think here? Who?
And if you don't mind flicking back to your roster, your team real quick, because like just looking at
there we go.
Okay. Just looking at what you have on your team right now, I'm thinking running back as well, right? Yeah. You have Mixon, you have Gordon, and then like Gordon is in a timeshare. You have J.D. McKissick, who's a backup. You have Darrell Henderson, who is most likely the backup to Cam Akers, but maybe that's somebody that we talk about later today. And you have Kenneth Gainwell, who's a backup to Miles Sanders. I would probably swing away at another guy. If you like Kenyon Drake's one to look at there. I'd be looking at running backs here and looking for somebody that I feel can give me an opportunity. Like, who's somebody in here that can give me a shot? And to me, that's I think Kenyon Drake may be top of that list. Just looking at who's available there, and if you don't mind, change that to ADP if you just click on it at the top, because that'll give you a better look at who people have been picking.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not
great.
It's not pretty.
It's not great, but I have two guys in mind, and I actually, so this was shaping up nicely in my draft to where I might be able to get the pick on the show tonight. And I had guys queued up, like pre-selected.
And then they all went.
No, they didn't know. Once I saw this could happen, I could do this on the show. I took my pre-selections off, so I could do it on the show if possible. And Drake was one of the guys that I had queued up. And the beauty is I get picks back to back here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really leaning Kenyon Drake here because, again, Jacobs goes down, Drake's the next man up. And in round 20, that's really what you're hoping for here. Is we're not hoping for an injury, but if an injury happens, you want the next man up.
It's insurance.
Yes.
If an injury were to happen.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're thinking here is
the other. There's a guy we've talked about him a lot on the show too. Is Abram Smith, running back, New Orleans. Kamara is going to be suspended. Ingram is old and inefficient. New Orleans likes Abram Smith. They signed him to a pretty hefty contract for an undrafted free agent. He's a guy. It's a seasonal league. I just have a hard time taking a rookie running back, and that's why I'm leaning more towards.
I mean, you're picking at the turn, right? You have back-to-back picks.
Yeah, I'm picking at 20.12 and 21.01.
I would take Kenyon Drake and Abram Smith, and then then go from there, or a Hassan Haskins, or you might be able to wait for him for 2022. The 22nd round pick. I would be leaning there, and I would just hammer running backs with these last three picks. Yeah. Maybe a kicker, because if I already have a kicker. I drafted Daniel Carlson. Yeah, but the thing is, you can flex up to 3 kickers, and
it
is but you have a lot of like long shot pieces, and you have to start 11. You have to start 11 guys, and so if right now J.D. McKissick is a starter for you, and if J.D. McKissick who would be your starter then? Hunter Henry.
I'd start
Dan Carlson. I mean, actually, you have
start Melvin Gordon.
Goff as your third. Gordon has to be a starter.
Yep.
But you have Jared Goff in your 10 spot right now, and you have J.D. McKissick in your 11. So you need 2 more players. You have Hurts and Brady who are going to be your starters. Mixon and Melvin
here's
Gordon
7,
who are
here's
going to be
8,
your starters.
Here's 9.
And then you have
I
Keenan
could
Allen,
do
Michael
10,
Pittman,
11.
Michael Thomas, DK Metcalf. That right there.
So here's the thing, right? My first 9 picks are my starters.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you have 2 more that you have to start.
Yeah. So I could start Hunter Henry to make 10 and Carlson makes 11.
Okay.
Right. So I did take Kenyon Drake there. So I'm up at 2101 here. A name that I really like, and I got to see if we put him on the sheet here. No, we did. We talked about him pre-show, right? But a guy that I like here is Damien Williams down in Atlanta.
I mean, you're gonna be wrong and disappointed with this pick, but that's all right. I'll let you be wrong because it's for good discourse.
Here's the thing: it's the 21st round, right?
Mm-hmm.
There, more than likely, the person I take here is the second person that I cut.
Yep.
Come waiver wire.
Yep.
And the beautiful thing is we still have the entirety of the preseason to see what Atlanta is going to do with their backfield. So for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to take Damien Williams here.
Like it.
And we're going to have a conversation about this later.
Yeah. I mean, you're actually somebody just responded. Your answer should be Jerick McKinnon.
Ooh.
Yeah, there you go. The answer should be Jerick McKinnon for you, Pat. And I don't know. He is in the Chiefs' backfield, but the Chiefs' backfield is a bit wishy-washy. But again, if you're going all the way in the 2021-22, if you're going in those rounds, he's a fine flyer. Injury history is a major concern, but also probably part of the reason why he's going so cheap.
20th round, I will take a chance on a guy that has an opportunity to be the starting running back in Atlanta. Actually, not the starter, the RB2 behind Cordero Patterson. I'll take my chances there.
And shout out to @FF_litigator, who was the one that threw that out there for us. He's actually in my division for the Scott Fishbowl, the bodacious Buffalo division.
Much appreciated. All right. That was fun. We both got to make Scott Fishbowl picks live on the show. Shall we get to the opening? Shall we get to the opening question 15 minutes into the show?
Yeah, because this is the opening. It's time to crack one open with the opening question.
You're gonna end up getting so drunk doing these openers. You really need to record one.
I had it recorded nicely, and then
that actually might get you drunker, because if it doesn't open properly, then you got to drink the beer and then do it again.
And then do another one.
Yeah.
I can open a beer pretty well, I feel like. So
it's not that difficult. All right.
It's a skill, damn it.
It is. Opening question this week comes from @TradeGod3. Who do you want in Dynasty? That's the only stipulation here. Who do you want in Dynasty? AJ Dillon, Elijah Mitchell, David Montgomery, or James Cook?
This comes down to 2 pathways that I see it. It's either David Montgomery, because I'm competing right now, and he has the clearest pathway to touches and a lot of touches and a lot of success. Well, it's the Bears, so maybe not that successful touches, but it's David Montgomery in one camp if I'm trying to just put the player in my lineup week in and week out. Otherwise, it's AJ Dillon, because the value around AJ Dillon right now is so high that you can flip him for, I would say, more than a James Cook, and similar to Elijah Mitchell, if not more than Elijah Mitchell. And I think it comes down to that youth value blend that everybody wants to get a piece of in Dynasty. And I need a guy to be in my starting lineup right now. And that's David Montgomery to me.
No, I immediately went to the same 2. I was leaning a little more towards AJ Dillon. just because if you're thinking longer term, I think A.J. Dillon is, he's probably not the option this year, but, he has the ability and the opportunity to produce as much, if not more, than David Montgomery, being with Green Bay, and question marks around Aaron Jones. So it's 1A, 1B with A.J. Dillon and David Montgomery. And Montgomery is the choice if you're looking now. If 2022 is you're putting your team in that window to win now, it's David Montgomery.
Yeah.
If you were looking for a little longer term success or sustainability and you're looking at building, then I say A.J. Dillon.
Yeah. And you're not getting a ton of receiving work out of A.J. Dillon, which is one kind of little knock to him. But I mentioned this in the past. I was shocked by the amount of touches that A.J. Dillon had. He had over 200 touches last year. And that was with an Aaron Jones that played a significant – I think he played, 16 games? I'd have to look it up real quick. But he played, I want to say, almost every game last season. Yeah. And A.J. Dillon still had 200 touches. Now, Aaron Jones still had a fine finish to the season, but A.J. Dillon definitely did more last year than I perceived him as doing, having watched the season. He just he didn't pop off. Not that he didn't pop off the screen. Like his numbers didn't pop off the screen to me, like off the computer screen, until I kind of went back and re-looked at them again and was like, oh, he had 187 attempts.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of attempts.
It really is. It really is. And this was a good one. It was really hard for me not to pick, because we're going to talk about one name on this list later in the show. It was difficult for me not to pick him. But I do like A.J. Dillon and David Montgomery more than the player we're talking about later. And we'll get into some of those details in just a minute. So last week, Seth and I talked about the players that could ruin your season. This week is all about players that could lead you to a championship in 2022. We've got 10 guys we're going to discuss with one little caveat. Their ADP. Yes, Jonathan Taylor could lead you to a championship in 2022.
Probably.
Yes, Justin Jefferson can do it. I mean, it's science.
Yeah.
It's science. This week, though, we're talking about guys who have an ADP north of 100. North of 100 that could lead you to a championship in 2022. And we're going to start out at the quarterback position. And we're going to start in Indy with the newest Indianapolis Colt, Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is coming off an ADP this year of 141. He is QB 20 coming off the board. And he's honestly coming into one of the better offenses he's had in a long time.
Yeah.
You have Jonathan Taylor. You have Michael Pittman. You have Paris Campbell. You have Mo Alley Cox. You have Dulcich, the tight end, right? Not Dulcich. The tight end, Jelani Woods. You have weapons. You have options. You have a great offensive line. The pieces are in place for Matt Ryan to step in and be successful early.
Mm-hmm. You have the chance for a healthy Paris Campbell once again, who's another one that I like.
We've talked about Paris Campbell. We've talked about him so much on this show.
An ADP of 193. He's a guy that, if healthy, could be a really interesting play there. But I mean, I think this goes to a bit of a narrative here, right? Of you're expecting Jonathan Taylor to be the 101. You're expecting him to be the number one running back. You have Michael Pittman as his ADP is 35. So he's a pick that you're most of the time taking in the third round or better.
Yep.
And then you have like Nayeem Heinz that's in there. You don't have a lot of other wide receivers that are ranked that high. But if you're expecting Michael Pittman to return value with an ADP of 35.9, then you have to expect Matt Ryan to get him the ball. At a bare minimum, you're expecting that. Like you have Michael Pittman at an ADP of wide receiver 13. He's the 13th wide receiver coming off the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be difficult for him to achieve that if Matt Ryan doesn't have at least a decent season. And again, I want to believe in Paris Campbell so badly.
Oh my gosh.
Want to believe in him so badly, but his health becomes an issue. If he's healthy, that adds another dynamic piece to that offense.
Yep.
Nayeem Heinz is a hugely dynamic piece of that offense. We saw it at the beginning of, last year, when he got a handful of touches, ripped them off for massive runs or runs after the catch. It's a dynamic piece of the offense, which is not a difficult throw to make. That's one of those jokes of, well, that's a throw I could make. It's just a swing pass to the running back.
That's every guy watching football.
Every guy watching football says that they can make that throw. But it's definitely not a difficult throw for an NFL caliber quarterback who Matt Ryan definitely is. And I think this Indy offense is going to stay. I
think they're going to be
at a level of.
I think they're going to be really good. Mm-hmm. I really do.
Yep. And you're getting Matt Ryan as the quarterback 20. Cheap. If you're playing in a super flex league, he is the perfect quarterback too, because you don't have to use your first 2 round draft picks in order to get him.
Yep.
And that's huge because now your second round pick can be used on a running back like maybe Najee Harris falls, maybe a Jamar Chase falls, and that's your second round pick. And now you're off to a great start, especially because, I would assume Matt Ryan's going to return value at that quarterback 20.
He's that ADP,
he's going to be, in my prediction, I would say he's going to be at that quarterback 1 line, right? Yes. Where he's going to be somewhere in like that top 15.
That's top 15 is exactly
somewhere between 10 and 15.
Yes.
That's great if you're taking him as the QB 20.
For a guy you're drafting at 141, yes.
Right. Yep.
Shall we go? Let's go further down in ADP for this next quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
This is my favorite late quarterback. And this is not your one quarterback leagues where your late quarterback is like Aaron Rodgers is the QB 11 or whatever, Cousins. Right? Like this is like super flex or taking them and you're like, oh, I need a backup quarterback, something like that. This is a dynasty play that I'm interested in trying to make as well, trying to go out and get for some of my dynasty teams if I can get them cheap. But it is Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is coming off of an injury, which is a bit scary that he's coming off of a pretty significant injury.
Yeah.
He was only able to play 7 games. But in those 7 games, he threw 14 touchdowns and only 3 picks. Now, his touchdowns and yardage came in spurts, but it came in spurts in an offense that he was just taking full advantage of because it was his first year really leading it. He's taking over from Drew Brees and that kind of Taysom Hill piece. And he was the main quarterback through those first 7 games. And so he had a couple of up and down games. That's there. But he threw a 5 touchdown game. Not many quarterbacks that you're going to get at that 20, 25, like 30 range are going to be able to put up 5 touchdown games. So if you're doing a best ball league and you need a late quarterback because you already got one early, now you want a late one to fill in, Jameis Winston gives you week winning ability because he has the potential to put up 5 touchdowns. He also has weapons around him.
We didn't even talk about the weapons yet.
Yeah, that are going to make him an even more exciting, enticing option. You have, again, the potential now, depending on how your feelings got hurt by this player, you have Michael Thomas.
I'm all in.
Coming back.
I am all in on Michael Thomas. All in on Michael Thomas in 2022.
He's a player that At his current ADP, and I'll have to scroll down my list of ADP here, but at his current ADP, I want to say it's 50. In the 60s or 70s.
50.
It's 50?
50.7.
No. Yeah, wow,
Yep.
50.7. Look at that. At his current ADP, he's wide receiver 20. He's not too far removed from the wide receiver 1.
That's exactly right.
Again, that was with Drew Brees, not Jameis. But go ahead, Pat.
Michael Thomas's ceiling is still the wide receiver 1. Jameis Winston, yes, Jameis is not as accurate as Drew Brees, but we saw Drew Brees those last few years. They had to bring in Jameis Winston to throw the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. Jameis is not afraid to throw the ball down the field. I get it. Michael Thomas missed a lot of games the last 2 years. He's coming off a serious ankle injury, but you're not going to find a guy who is that far down as far as wide receivers go, who has legit wide receiver 1 potential.
Yeah.
I'm all in on the wide receiver 1.
Yep.
The wide receiver 1 potential. I'm all in on Michael Thomas, and I love the Jameis pick here too, by the way.
And so Jameis not only has Michael Thomas, they brought in another veteran presence with Jarvis Landry, who he wasn't great in Cleveland last year.
Captain consistency.
But Baker was also not good last year because of Baker's injury. And Jarvis still kind of was, like he wasn't as good, but he still filled his role. That's another role that he can fill in New Orleans. You have the rookie Chris Olave that they just spent a first-round pick on.
Love it.
I'm going to bring him up again in a little bit. And then they have one of the best pass-catching running backs in Alvin Kamara. Now, there's a question of whether or not Alvin Kamara is going to get suspended this year, if it's going to roll over to next year, how many games it's going to be, if it's going to be any games at all. But, again, once Alvin Kamara is going to be on the field, and I highly expect him to be on the field this year, it's just a matter of how much is he going to be on the field. That right there is
that's
an
a legit offense.
And the offensive line isn't like they're not the Steelers from last year. Like they're not number 1 in the league, but they're a decent offensive line.
Yep.
There's I'd have to look back and see like where they kind of finish in terms of rank, but they're not that's that offensive line. Nobody's going to be able to play well behind that offensive line. They're not like that. They're more of a middle of the pack. And I actually want to say they're up towards the middle. I'd have to check to see what their offensive offseason moves were, but that right there is a perfect opportunity for that offense to hum. And if it's going to hum, it's going to hum because Jameis is throwing the ball he's all over the field.
I mean, he's a guaranteed lock to outproduce his ADP.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, again, this is a guy who has, I just closed his page out, but let me pull this back up real quick just to see. I mean, this is the guy that came in as a rookie and put up 275 fantasy points. Back, followed that up with 255. And then in 2019, when he threw for 5,100 yards,
30 touchdowns,
33 touchdowns, he put up 305
fantasy points. Also 30 interceptions, but
the talent is there. And I love it. I love the Saints offense this year. Are you looking up their offensive line?
That's what I'm doing right now.
So while you're doing that, let's talk about a Saints wide receiver that we like at his ADP.
Yeah. PFF has him as 21st. So again, kind of in that middle range. It's middle to back third.
Yeah.
And mostly because they have a rookie left tackle. And that's gonna raise questions, but still, there's enough pieces around that the Saints should be okay.
Yep. All right, we're going to stick in New Orleans. We're going to talk about Chris Olave, the rookie wide receiver that New Orleans just brought in. And you know him from probably being, a top 5 pick in your rookie drafts. Yeah. He's coming off the board with an ADP of 130, almost 131. He's coming off the board as wide receiver 52. Yes, he's behind Michael Thomas. Yes, he's behind Jarvis Landry. But if you've listened to us in the past, I have a huge man crush on Chris Olave. He is my rookie wide receiver one. I've talked about him enough. I love him in this offense because of Jameis. I love him because the potential is there for this to be a top 5 offense. And we just talked about Michael Thomas coming off injuries. If he's not healthy, now Olave is catapulted up into the wide receiver 2 behind Jarvis Landry, who has been just average his entire career. So you're looking at a guy who's in a good offense, good to great offense, with a good quarterback, with I love everything about Chris Olave in New Orleans. And you, Seth, you put him on the list tonight. I want you to talk about him a little bit more.
Yeah. Chris Olave was the 3rd wide receiver taken in the NFL draft at pick 11. He was taken 1 pick after, what was it, the Jets took Garrett Wilson, and was at 4 picks after Drake London taken by the Falcons with the 8th pick. That right there is enough to raise eyebrows. Like, ooh, that's interesting. Because he's going that high up. That team is that invested in him to get him at that point, especially when you have, like, there's always other positions that can be filled, right? So the Saints went out, they got him with an extremely high pick, an extremely valuable pick. And, is he right now possibly as the 3rd wide receiver? I think so. But that could mean that he's starting off in the slot. That could mean that he's starting out wide and Jarvis Landry's in the slot. There could be a lot of movement for him. But I think one of the things is you saw with him in Ohio that, like, he is a dynamic wide receiver. There is a lot that Chris Olave does well. Now, I guarantee you there are some of the overly focused on analytics people out there that are going to say, "Oh, well, he's a late declare. Like, he could have gone into the NFL draft last season, but didn't, and instead went back to college and is now coming out again." Yes, that does ding him in terms of his analytical profile. But what you watch of his just profile of work on the football field, he is a highly, highly effective wide receiver and can be played basically all over the field. So if Michael Thomas suffers any setbacks with an injury, he can step into that role. If Jarvis Landry, being an older gentleman in terms of fantasy and NFL terms, any injuries there, any show a decline, Chris Olave can step into that role. And he does have 2 guys that he can learn from on how to be an NFL wide receiver. Jarvis Landry was one of those guys, kind of like Brandon Cooks, who's just like, he just puts up 1,000 yards. That's just what he does. Just year in and year out, he puts up 1,000 yards. That's what it is. That's something that Chris Olave can learn from and build off of. And if I'm saying that Jameis Winston's going to far out produce his ADP, there's going to be plenty of room for Michael Thomas to do well, Jarvis Landry to do well, Chris Olave to do well. And Chris Olave is so far down in ADP that he has a massive potential to outproduce his ADP of 130.
130, yep.
And wide receiver 52.
Yep. We're moving further down the ADP here. We're going to talk about a guy that switched teams next. He went from Jacksonville to my Detroit Lions. We're talking DJ Chark. DJ Chark has an ADP of 152.7. He is coming off the board as wide receiver 57 this year. He signed a 1-year, fully guaranteed $10 million deal with the Lions. Incentives pushed up to 12. I mean, last year broke his ankle, only played 4 games. Season before that was 2020. Injured again, only played in 13 games, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2019 was the big year for DJ Chark that kind of put him back on the map. 118 targets, 73 catches for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. He now comes to Detroit, who was severely lacking in an outside, big-bodied wide receiver. So the Lions now have DJ Chark on the outside, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they can move around, Jameis Williams as the over-the-top threat, who
will miss
not be
probably
he will miss
6 weeks, somewhere in that range.
Yes, exactly. So Chark steps into a great position here to an offense that, and I'm trying to remove my homework cap here, but an offense that is ascending. We saw what they could do towards the tail end of last season when everything started to come together. So I'm expecting big things out of the Lions this year. I'm also expecting good things out of DJ Chark. I mean, you're getting the teams on paper. He's probably the number 2 wide receiver right now, but has the potential to be the wide receiver 1 on the Lions until Jameis Williams comes back.
Yeah.
But one last thing for me on DJ Chark. He's a guy, wide receiver 57. I'm almost positive he is going to outproduce that along with that ADP of 152.
Yeah. And I think health plays a factor here because he has had he hasn't played a full season in his career. So health is going to play a factor. If he's healthy, that's going to again affect him, right? But let's put into perspective too what he was able to do and who he was able to do it with. So he put up 1,700 yards and 13 touchdowns over 28 games, playing with Gardner Minshew, who is not a starting caliber quarterback.
He's no Jared Goff.
Based on okay, yeah, that's not exactly where I wanted to go with that. It was more so that Gardner Minshew is he's a backup now. He's a backup in Philly. Mm-hmm. I personally really like Gardner Minshew. He's a guy that's just fun to root for because he is so over the top, outrageous, quirky, whatever. But in terms of what he does on the football field, there's plenty of mistakes that are made, right? And then when he was playing, when DJ Chark was playing with Trevor Lawrence was not good last year. Nope. He threw 12 total touchdowns. Like that's not good, right? And so, and plus, like Chark wasn't healthy. He only played 4 games. But what you're moving to now is, yes, Goff is not a quarterback that you're excited for. He's probably not too far away from a backup quarterback, like I was just saying about Gardner Minshew, but he is a quarterback that has experience in the league. Like it or not, he is a quarterback that went to the Super Bowl. Yes, it's kind of like Joe Flacco going to the Super Bowl, except, Goff lost. But he has experience. He has the ability to help a team win. I'm not going to say he won games for the team because that puts, I think, too much emphasis on just the quarterback play. And I think the Rams definitely showed the dynamic play that they could have with a different quarterback in there. But you're going to at least man, it is really tough to come up with positive words for Goff. I was going to say competent, and even that's like, I don't really like it as a word for Goff. But he's at least right now a starting 32 level quarterback, and Minshew hasn't been. And that's who Chark was playing with for the past 2 years.
The last thing I'll say about Jared Goff and DJ Chark is Goff is the best quarterback that DJ Chark is. Maybe not. He's probably Trevor Lawrence is better, but
Trevor Lawrence is not. Trevor Lawrence of 2021 is not better than what Goff has been in Goff's career.
Correct.
So I think Trevor Lawrence be a better quarterback? I think we can agree to that. Like, yes, he's going to ascend to be a better quarterback. But is 2021 Goff and 2021 Trevor Lawrence, like Goff was a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence was.
Goff will be serviceable, right?
There's a good word. Not
with
confident, serviceable.
With this Lions offense and on paper, the weapons they have put around Jared Goff, he has the ability to be successful. He can spread it around. He can dump it off. He can check it down. He can hit the quick slant. If he wants to, he didn't do it a lot last year. If he wants to, he can throw the ball downfield. He's got some weapons now. I expect DJ Chark to be one of the better weapons that the Lions have, at least until Jameson Williams comes back.
And if Amon-Ra St. Brown and Chark are playing well, and a lot of people are expecting Hawk to take a step. A lot of people are expecting Swift to take a step. If all of that happens, you may not need to rush Jameson Williams back into the starting lineup. You can use him more conscientiously around, like, okay, this is what we're trying to make happen on this play. Go out and let us see what you can do. And you don't have to force him into, okay, well, we're going to use you in all these different ways right now, right away. And so that can, it's one of the reasons why I'm a little scared of Jameson Williams, but that's another thing that could go right for Chark that keeps him in that wide receiver 2 of a team that I've heard a lot of chatter about. The Lions are going to be a sneaky good team. I don't know if I'm ready to buy into that. Like, Pat, I know you're a Lions fan and all, but I'm not ready to go with them being sneaky good yet. But I could definitely see them taking a step forward.
On paper, yes.
I love your optimism, Pat. You are always so like, yeah, Lions, we're gonna do great. On paper.
On paper. All right. Last wide receiver we're going to talk about tonight is a guy that local to me here in Michigan, played his college ball here in Michigan, drafted by the Texans, second year down in Houston. We're talking Nico Collins. Mm-hmm. This year, Nico Collins has an ADP of 180. He is coming off the board as wide receiver 77. And he's a guy, if you watch from the beginning, he's a guy that I drafted in Scott Fishball. He's a guy that I like for a lot of reasons: the athleticism, the development he's shown from college to pro to being a rookie to having decent production as a rookie wide receiver in the NFL with Davis Mills at quarterback. Mm-hmm. Last year, he played 14 games, 33 catches on 61 targets, 446 yards, 1 touchdown. He put up 83.6 fantasy PPR points last year. I expect that number to increase this year. He's the number 2 wide receiver on a team that is more than likely going to be playing from behind. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. He's behind a wide receiver in Brandon Cooks, who might be the most underrated wide receiver in the game from a fantasy perspective. But Brandon Cooks will draw coverage, allowing Nico Collins to thrive. And we never hope for injuries here. But if Brandon Cooks gets injured, Nico Collins is now the wide receiver 1 on a team that's going to be throwing the ball probably in the top third of attempts this year. Top half, top third of attempts this year. I like Nico Collins as a guy that you draft him, you stash him. Best ball leagues, yes, you stash him in seasonal leagues or dynasty leagues, and you see what happens because he can produce, and he's only an injury or a game plan away from being a wide receiver 1 on his team.
2 things. One, I don't know if it's just this one league, and it feels very anecdotally that this is the year all of a sudden that people are going to start drafting Brandon Cooks close to where he kind of should be going, which feels so awkward and weird because he always has been the most underrated wide receiver because he just always finishes a wide receiver 2. But and there's this one particular league that I'm looking at right now in Sleeper, part of the Bob Lung experience. I drafted DK. Oh, no, sorry. That's the wrong one. Hold on. There we go. It's the Warrior Bowl. Sorry. The Warrior Bowl, which is another larger charity type of league. I took DK Metcalf in the 6th round at 6'5" as the wide receiver 17. Brandon Cooks went at 6'9" as the wide receiver 20. So there's this weird increase in ADP all of a sudden after Brandon Cooks has had 8 years of putting up wide receiver 2 numbers every year except for his rookie year and the year that he had 2 concussions in the same year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get why all of a sudden people are now doing it. It really kind of upsets me because I've always been I'm going to take Brandon Cooks in the 10th round because nobody wants to take him. But anyways, back to Nico Collins, right? Brandon Cooks is going to have that role, and Brandon Cooks, healthy or not, is going to probably help Nico Collins more if he is healthy. But Nico Collins on the Houston Texans, Nico Collins had 60 targets. Second on the team. Nico Collins had 33 receptions. Second on the team. Nico Collins had 446 receiving yards. Second on the team. Now, where Nico Collins could improve is in his touchdowns. He only had 1 touchdown. And even if you look at yards from scrimmage, out of all of the Texans players, yards from scrimmage, Nico Collins comes in 4th behind the running backs that split time with Rex Burkhead and David Johnson. So, and of course, Brandon Cooks at the top of that. So there is room for Nico Collins to grow in his second year. There's room for Davis Mills to grow in his second year. There's room for this entire Houston offense to grow in its second year. And Nico Collins is still being drafted as wide receiver 77. That's beyond every team has had 2 wide receivers taken, and some teams have had 3 wide receivers taken. He's behind all of that. Make it make sense, because it doesn't.
I agree.
And you know what? I don't need you to make it make sense. Let's just take advantage.
I can't. Agreed. All right, let's move to running backs. And it's not cheating because this player does have an ADP north of 100. It's 103. We're real close here, Seth. But it's a name that we talked about in our opening question. And we're talking James Cook. James Cook has an ADP of 103 this year. He's coming off the board as running back 43. Buffalo has tried so hard this offseason to bring in a guy like James Cook before they drafted James Cook. They tried to sign J.D. Mckissick. They tried to trade her. They inquired about CMC. Buffalo is actively looking at getting that satellite type running back to mix in with the current running backs and ultimately take over. I mean, Buffalo is not, in my opinion, they're not sold on Devin Singletary because they keep going out and drafting and trying to acquire running backs. Is Singletary, is he a competent running back? Yes. Is he the best running back on that roster? Probably not. At this ADP, especially in PPR leagues, and that's not even talking about the draft capital that Buffalo invested in James Cook. He was a round 2 pick. Before the compensation, he was round 2 pick 63rd overall. There's draft capital there. There's an investment there. I'll take James Cook over Zach Moss. I might even take James Cook over Devin Singletary.
Yeah. And
I don't know, Seth, you're the Buffalo guy. You tell me.
I mean, here's my thing, right? I agree with the point that Buffalo is just always actively trying to get another running back. And I'm not sure if that is that does not instantly mean that it's a slight on Devin Singletary. It could mean that they don't like depth pieces behind him and they want to bring depth pieces in, and drafting running backs is an easy way to bring depth in because it's one of the most easy to transfer from one level to the next. You see rookie running backs coming in and being successful at a much higher rate than you see most other positions, especially in the offense. Now, here's the thing with Singletary, right? Singletary has had 3 years of damn near 1,000 yards from scrimmage all 3 years. And that's with, Zach Moss is going to be the guy. Zach Moss is definitely going to be the guy. Oh, what about this other guy? He's going to be the guy. Like there's always been that conversation. There's always been another guy that is going to be the guy so that it's not Singletary. And Singletary, I think we just need to come to terms with Buffalo is a committee backfield. That's what it is. They're going to always do that. It's kind of like San Francisco is always going to drive you crazy as a fantasy manager because they're going to have 4 guys that they're going to end up with 8 running back 1 weeks across the season, but it's going to be done by 4 different running backs. Like that, I think we just need to come to terms with that's what Buffalo is. They're a committee running back year after year. Just expect it, right? And so does James Cook have league winning potential? Yes, he does, but it's going to come either in the passing game or because of Devin Singletary getting injured. And here's just I want a way to use some of the awesome features that Fantasy Data has. When you have the premium subscription with Fantasy Data, you can go into some of the advanced efficiency metrics for running backs. And here's a fun little game. Guess who had a better juke rate last year? Devin Singletary or Saquon Barkley?
It's going to be Devin Singletary.
It is Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
Who had more breakaway runs, Joe Mixon or Devin Singletary?
Devin Singletary.
Who was a top 5 running back in breakaway runs? Devin Singletary, Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones. Who of those running backs was a top 5 running back in breakaway runs, which are runs greater than 15 yards?
You made your point.
So is Devin Singletary
Devin
bad
Singletary
running back?
is a good running back.
I don't think he is. Now, yes, can these numbers all be misconstrued and misinterpreted? I am not trying to say Devin Singletary is a top 5 backs and all those other good backs are not top 5 backs. What I'm trying to say is Devin Singletary is a good running back. Is he a great running back? No. Is he in a committee and is he probably always going to be in a committee? Yes. Does that leave the door open for James Cook to have potential? Yes, it does. Because the other part of that committee is there's somebody else there that, the pass catching running back role that everybody wants to see, that could be James Cook this year. And I think this is one spot where me and you disagree a little bit because I'm not that high on James Cook and you are, but I think I think there is potential there. But I don't think the potential is because Devin Singletary is a bad back, which I feel like is the narrative that's out there. Just because he didn't have, insane fantasy points doesn't mean that he wasn't a good back. It means that, sometimes shit happens.
So let's move to a guy who's a little further down. He's coming off with an ADP of 112. RB 47. He is a guy that the Buffalo Bills actually tried to sign this offseason. He was offered a 2-year, $7 million deal but he went back to his original team for the same compensation. We're talking J.D. Mckissick. He's a guy that Buffalo liked, wanted to get him. He re-signed with the Commanders. He's now back in Washington, looking to form a committee with Antonio Gibson. Now, last year, Mckissick wasn't healthy or wasn't fully healthy. He did miss a few games. He missed 6 games last year. He did more damage, and he's consistently done more damage as a receiving running back. Going back to 2020, by far his best year, 85 carries, 365 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown rushing, 110 targets, 80 catches for 589 yards and 2 scores for 191.4 fantasy points in 2020. Yeah. That's the J.D. Mckissick that you like to see and that you want to see, especially someone who is down in the, 112, coming off the board as wide receiver 47. I mean, those numbers,
47. His amount of catches makes you think he's a wide receiver, but he is a running back.
Right. No, running back 47. I mean, career highs, last year, he is your PPR machine. Seth, I know you hate fantasy points per game. I know you hate it. But he averaged 11.6
better. Yeah.
He averaged 11.6 fantasy points per game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had a very, that was going back. That was last year. It averaged 12 points the year before. He's a double-digit fantasy point per game player at the running back position who catches a ton of passes.
Yeah, and
who you could potentially get is running back 47.
Yeah, and that's what it is it's a matter of, will J.D. Mckissick be the guy that is catching the passes for the Commanders? And I think the answer is yes, right? Like I think Antonio Gibson has definitely made strides in that, but even in the 11 games that J.D. Mckissick played, he still caught one more ball and had one more target than Antonio Gibson did, and Antonio Gibson played 16 games. So even that split is something that's interesting. Do I think J.D. Mckissick is going to get back to 110 targets like he had in 2020? I don't think so.
Probably not.
But I don't think he needs that to return value at where you're taking him. And if you're thinking about something like best ball, exactly. I'm much more interested taking like a J.D. Mckissick as RB47 in a best ball league, because if he has he has games under his belt where he's getting 10 targets more and getting, 8-10 receptions, like that's a huge game for a running back that you're taking as the running back 47. It's kind of like Cordarrelle Patterson last year, where you're getting these insane receiving numbers for a running back that just pads their stats, their fantasy stats to an extent that you're not getting from all your other running backs.
Let's move to Atlanta. I talked about Damian Williams. I want you to talk about this next running back, because he is the guy that you put on this list.
Yeah, and so I think the actual second running back in Atlanta is Tyler Algiere. He is a rookie. He's a 5th-round rookie running back. I know the correlations of different rounds of running back and how low it is for a 5th-round running back. But Tyler Algiere is a 5th-round running back that is, let me make sure I get his size right, 5'11", 220. That is the size that you want your running back to be. That's like the
prototypical running back size
for a running back. And these are his numbers. Again, it's coming out of BYU, but these are his numbers his last year in college. He had 1,600 yards and 23 touchdowns to go along with, and this is a big part, to go along with 28 receptions. If a running back has 20 plus receptions, I don't know why this threshold is the threshold. I'm not the one that did the data analysis on it, but the threshold that people always talk about is wanting over 20 receptions for your running back in college, right? He has 28 receptions, 23 rushing touchdowns, 1,600 rushing yards. Those are phenomenal numbers. I want to say he was number one in college football for touchdowns, and he was the number one or close to it in rushing yards. Maybe not number one, because I feel like there's always like a 2,000-yard guy. But like he was one of the higher guys in yards from scrimmage. So when you look at the backfield for Atlanta, you have Cordarrelle Patterson, Damian Williams, and then Tyler Algiere.
Tyler Algiere, yeah.
Who's the guy that's going to get the ball at the goal line? Tyler Algiere. Who's the guy that you're going to want really moving the ball on with a lot of touches? It's going to be Tyler Algiere if he shows that he can take advantage of that situation. And that's where, for me, Tyler Algiere going is RB 55. He's so far out of the realm of, I'm ever going to play him if he's not getting work. He's in that range of, right. You're going to start to get a sense over the next month of where he fits in this depth chart. Through the month of August, you're going to get some look of him against some other NFL caliber players. Granted, it's the preseason and it's going to be guys that are going to get cut, but you're going to see him against other NFL caliber players. And think of, again, the rest of the offense in Atlanta. You have who knows at quarterback. You have Kyle Pitts at tight end as one of your number one offensive weapons. You have Drake London, who's also a rookie, who kind of walks through the door and is kind of like, hey, we expect you to be the number 2 weapon on this team. And then who else catching the ball? You might as well put Cordarrelle Patterson, who was a wide receiver / running back special teamer for most of his career, especially with the Patriots. You might as well put him in the slot as a flanker and use him around the field and let Tyler Algiere be the guy in the backfield and take advantage of just mismatches throughout that offense. Tyler Algiere is a he has all of the outs, to use a nice poker term. This is one of those hands where you know your pocket cards are all right. The flop comes and it's like, hey, these next 2 cards, I could get this or that or this or that. Like, there's so many outs for Tyler Algiere to outperform his ADP that I can't not take him late in drafts.
Fair enough. It's a good dart throw. I do agree with you there. All right, let's move. He's better than a good dart throw. I'll give you that. You've sold me a little bit on Tyler Algiere. I can't go back and change my pick, so I'm still going to stick with my guy, Damien Williams. But let's wrap this up. Let's move to tight ends. We have 2 tight ends that we want to cover tonight. The first, we're cracking another one. The first comes in with an ADP of 107. He is the tight end 11 coming off the board. He finished last year as tight end 5 in fantasy points. He now has a full season, or he will have a full season under his belt. But we're talking about Zach Ertz.
Yeah, and he'll have a full season under his belt with this new team, the Cardinals, which I think is that's kind of a big part of that also.
Kind of a big deal, considering it's rare for tight ends to come in, switch teams midseason, and produce at the level he produced. I mean, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double-digit point games from from week 11 through the end of last season, including games where those are games without touchdowns.
Yeah, it wasn't
double-digit points without touchdowns.
Yeah.
Well, week 11 he had 2. I'm sorry, he had 2 touchdowns in week 11 against Seattle.
Yeah, he had because he had 11 games with the Cardinals, so he had 6 games in double digits. 6 of the 11 were in double digits. He went 56 of 81 for 576 and 3 touchdowns. So 81 to come in and have 81 targets, like just to put that into perspective, right? 81 targets, just 81 targets with the Cards. Only those 11 games with the Cardinals puts him 2 above Pat Freiermuth, just looking at tight end target numbers, and puts him at tight end 16. Right behind TJ Hawkinson. Wow, Jared Cook had 83 last year for the Chargers. Wow. Behind Gronk, behind Fant, behind, like you have your top guys now at the top. Like Ertz was a top 3 guy in terms of targets, partly because the
across
Cardinals
2 teams
used him right across 2 teams. But that 81 just with the Cardinals in 11 games puts them in the top 15. That's huge.
You look again, full season now with Arizona and Kyler Murray. No DeAndre Hopkins for 6 weeks. No Christian Kirk in Arizona anymore. Like, okay, so it's Rondell Moore and who? It's got to be
Hollywood.
It's Zach Ertz.
And Hollywood.
Yeah.
They tried to get Hollywood. That
is a big deal. And I know Murray and Hollywood have the connection from college, but man, it's going to be hard to ignore Zach Ertz in that Cardinal offense. It really is.
And if you extrapolate, and I'm not a huge fan of doing this, I actually really don't like doing it, but I'm going to do it just because it helps my point out. If you extrapolate what Zach Ertz did with the Cardinals over a full 17-game season, he would be 5 points shy of Dalton Schultz's tight end 3 performance last year. He would surpass 200 PPR points, that's a
pretty good.
When you think of what a tight end scoring is, that's phenomenal. And he's being drafted as the tight end 11, 12, somewhere in that range, which 11, most of those guys are going at 160 points. That's a 50-point, like you're taking him and that tight end 11, tight end 12, tight end, like honestly, from tight end 8 down, they're all, between 165 and 159 points. So that whole range from 6 to 12 is within 6 points. Zach Ertz, like when you think of what he could be with the Cardinals, is 50 points better than that, and he's being drafted in that range. That's a big deal. Now, yes, can he stay healthy? Yes, he's an older guy, but he looked just fine with the Cards last year.
Yes, he did. All right, last name on the list, another tight end, this time out in Denver. We're going to talk Albert O. Albert O is coming in with an ADP of 158. He's coming in as tight end 25 this year. Now, he is the starting the starting tight end in Denver. Denver brings in one of the better quarterbacks of our generation in Russell Wilson. I mean, it's a bit of a reach, but you get a guy you're drafting at tight end 25 at around the 160 mark. Mm-hmm. The tight end landscape is very sparse.
Yeah.
You are looking at a guy who's coming into his 3rd season. This is going to be with the best quarterback he's ever played with. The potential is there to outproduce his ADP and be a sleeper for a top 15 tight end. With all the other weapons that Denver has around, Alberto could be that piece that holds everything together and becomes Russell Wilson's safety blanket?
My only hesitation is trying to predict who's going to be the guy for Russell Wilson, right? Like Cortland Sutton, right. I think he's the guy, right? Like there's so many people I feel like are on Cortland Sutton. I'm one of them. I think Cortland Sutton's going to be the number one guy for Russell Wilson. Then after that, it's probably going to be Jared Jeudy. Then after that, it's probably going to be Tim Patrick. Then after that, you might have Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams in there. And then after that, now we get to Albert O. And I'm just curious of where does that hierarchy fall on a game-to-game basis, right? Now, why I like this pick, and this was one of your guys, Pat, why I like Albert O as this tight end 25 pick is because there is so much room for improvement for him. Even let's say he just does what Gerald Everett, the last tight end for Russell Wilson, did. He just does the same exact thing as Jared Everett did. That's 63 targets, 48 receptions, 448 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's what Jared Everett did. I don't know why his name is messing me up right now. Maybe it's that third beer I just opened up. But if he does just that, Jared Everett finished as the tight end 21 last year. That right there, like if he does just as well as that, he still returns on your investment. Now, is it a league winner? No. But does he have the potential? Are there other outs for Albert O to perform better than that? And I think
absolutely.
So. I absolutely think there is those opportunities.
You're banking on Sutton coming back, being healthy. You're banking on Jeudy avoiding any legal issues because he did have a minor run-in with law enforcement earlier this year. You know, you're banking on a lot of things going right for this Denver offense. And they brought in Russell Wilson with the expectation that things were going to go right. Yeah. Wilson was going to be the missing piece. And, you know, I think Albert O at tight end 25 with the ADP that he has, I lost it, the ADP of 158, you're going to get a return on that investment. And you're looking at guys that are around that range, you know, Njoku, Irv Smith, Evan Ingram, Austin Hooper, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, Cameron Brate, his ex-teammate Noah Fant. Those are all tight ends that have an ADP north of 50. I'll take Albert O to outperform all of those guys this year.
Yeah, and I think there's also the fact that there's not much in the way of competition in his own position for Albert O.
I mean, there's talk about Dulcich, but Albert O, I mean, it's his third year with the team, third year in the offense, playing with a better quarterback. I really like Albert O this year to outperform his ADP, to have a career year. Granted, it's not going to take much to have a career year, but he's progressing nicely for an NFL tight end. And he's only 24. So
I concur.
Well, that does it for the 10 guys that we think who have an ADP north of 100 that can lead you to a fantasy championship. Let us know what you think of the 10 we picked. Is there anybody else you think we should have added to the list? With that, let's move to the fact attack.
Oh man, I wasn't ready. Oh, hold on. Pat, say something clever.
Something clever.
All right, never mind.
All right, 5 questions. What?
Professional. That's what we are. We did that so smoothly. I don't think anybody that was watching picked up on the fact that I wasn't ready to put that drop in there. No one noticed.
We have scoured Twitter to find your questions. We are going to answer them now. Seth is going to put 5 minutes on the clock. Are we ready?
Sure.
We are, and go. First question tonight comes from @young_Joseph799. Who should I keep in my keeper league? No round penalties. Jerry Jeudy or Elijah Mitchell?
I'm leaning Mitchell because I want to say his ADP right now is higher than Jerry Jeudy, and I'm gonna pull that up right now. I think that would be my pick almost regardless, but let me do that while you tell me what you think.
So Elijah Mitchell has an ADP of 39, and Jerry Jeudy
is 70.9. Yeah, like that's
70.9. Yeah.
Yeah, you take the guy. Yeah, I didn't think they were almost 40 picks away.
No.
I was pretty sure that Elijah Mitchell was higher, but
this is a tricky one because we don't know roster construction.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there's no round penalty, but it would be nice to know the round that you drafted them in and where you're looking at keeping them. Because if you got Jerry Jeudy in double-digit rounds, you probably got Elijah Mitchell there too. So no, actually, Elijah Mitchell. It's Elijah. Yeah. It's Elijah Mitchell.
Yep, it's Elijah Mitchell. Yep.
Yeah. All right. From @JBB_FF, a 12-team dynasty PPR Superflex League, Cam Akers or DK Metcalf?
I'm going with. Give me DK.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to be turbulent this year. That let's put that out there. It's going to be turbulent for anybody owning DK this year. Maybe they get Jimmy Garoppolo and that helps out a little bit in keeping it a little bit level, but no matter what, it's going to be turbulent for DK, but I think it's you're getting a longer term value with DK than you are with Cam Akers. Cam Akers stands to be the number one running back for his team this year, but there are still some questions for me around the Achilles and him being 100% back. It looks like he's 100% back. Let's see how it holds up over an entire season. That's a big thing to me because the Achilles tear is a injury that not a lot of people come back from. Can Cam Akers be the uniform? Yes, Cam Akers can definitely be the unicorn. But for me, it's DK because of the long-term play of him retaining value.
I agree with DK Metcalf being the choice here. He's the unquestioned number one wide receiver in Seattle. It doesn't matter if it's Drew Lock. It doesn't matter if it's Geno Smith. It doesn't matter if it's Jimmy G. They're going to feed him the ball.
Yep.
I will take the guy who's going to get fed the ball, who's the unquestioned number one option.
Yeah.
And I want to break in here. I want to pause the fact attack.
Just going to do the same thing. No, this is part of the fact attack now. Joseph Seacrest just jumped in, part of the fact attack. Shout out to you, Joseph. What's going on with Lenny? Assuming you're talking about Lenny Fournette. He had one too many Twinkies, and it's gonna go away in a little bit. I do not.
Yeah, I mean the running joke.
It is great for GIFs and group chats, and I hope Lenny never sees anything that anybody that I'm in some group chats with ever posts about him because they're a whole lot of fat shaming. But I think Lenny is going to be just fine. I don't think this whole, he ballooned up to 260 pounds is going to be a detriment when it comes time for him to get on the field. He is a professional athlete. He has been a professional athlete. He knows his body. He knows how to maintain it. This is a story that's fun to get people's, undies in a twist. This is not a let's drastically shift where we have Leonard Fournette in any rankings or anything like that, or any viewpoint.
I mean, so the rumor here is that Fournette showed up to camp overweight. He showed up weighing around 260 pounds, noticeably more than the 230 pounds he played at last year, and the coaches were not happy. So again, this was mandatory minicamp. Mandatory minicamp was how many weeks ago? Like, he showed up a little overweight to minicamp. Big deal. That weight's going to come off. Not a problem.
Maybe that's why they posted the video of goodness, I don't even remember all four of the guys that were on the treadmills now, but of Lenny and oh goodness, who else was it? There was four guys on the treadmills. And Lenny, he looks like the bigger guy, but he is the bigger guy. But they're all like, let's just keep in mind, they're all better athletes than all of us. Like, they are the upper echelon. And again, they know their bodies. They have the trainers. They have the No, this is a July story. Yeah, that's all it is. There's nothing else behind this. He will be fine week 1. No worries. And all right. And the jokes are phenomenal in terms of just like funny play on words. Like, but other than that, like, no, it doesn't move me any. Joseph, appreciate the kind words. Thank you for watching. Thanks for asking your question. We appreciate it. All right. Back to the Fact Attack. Yeah, one more question and the timer's going to ring. From @JARSHT, who are you drafting first in redraft? Damien Pierce, Isaiah Spiller, or Rachaad White? I like the all-rookie question here. I do too. And I'm going to stop the timer before it actually. Oh, no, never mind. It rang anyways. Oh, and I just restarted it. Goodness, learn how to use a phone, man. To me, this is redraft, which comes down to two dynamics. It's who do I see with the best situation coming out of the gate and can step into the main role. And then whose ADP is the lowest and has the highest potential to just become a factor, right? And so to me, that splits this into Damien Pierce is in one category by himself, because Damien Pierce is walking into Houston and he has Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead. And I think Philip Lindsay is still there. I'd have to check the roster. No, Philip Lindsay moved on. I don't. Okay, you're just shaking your head as it's just not pretty. Okay, yeah. It's not. It's not pretty in Houston. And so Damien Pierce, I liked what I saw on film when I watched Damien Pierce. Do I think he is do I think he has top 5 potential? No. Do I think he's a Breece Hall level talent? No. Do I think he has the ability to walk into Houston and outplay Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead? I don't know. We'll figure out if Philip Lindsay's still on the team. Like, whoever else is on that team, do I feel like he has the potential to walk in and outplay them and take that role? Yes. So that puts Damien Pierce in a category by himself here. And then it becomes a question of Isaiah Spiller and Rachaad White, where it's who has now the potential to move forward. And for me, this is a pick your poison type of situation, depending on your league, your format. If you get, if it's a full PPR, if it's a tiered PPR, something like that, I might lean towards Rachaad White because he could take on that receiving back role in Tampa versus Isaiah Spiller, who feels like the guy that the Chargers want to use so that we don't have to have Austin Eckler crash into the offensive and defensive lines for a 2-yard pickup. We can put Isaiah Spiller in to do that. Could Isaiah Spiller, maybe steal some goal line work from Eckler? Maybe. Is he going to steal receiving work from Austin Eckler? No. Is he going to steal third down work and not necessarily receiving work or long yardage or a significant workload from Austin Eckler? No, I don't believe that. Do I think he could be the RB2 there? Yes. Do I think Rachaad White can be the RB2 there? Yes.
Now I know why you stopped. Now I know why you stopped the clock. I know why you stopped the clock for this one. Man, these are supposed to be rapid fire. Remember? That's the whole point.
You asked the question within the last 13 seconds, so I'm counting it as just our, it's all still part of the time.
Oh my goodness. Continue.
No, that's it. I'm done.
Please.
I don't want the time to go. I don't want the timer to go off a second time.
Go off again while you're still talking. Isaiah Spiller, in my mind, is the most talented of those three. He walks into the best situation of the three because he plays for the best team with the Chargers. I will take Isaiah Spiller out of this group. I'm really not a big fan of any of them for redraft leagues, at least not as far as drafting. Will these guys be drafted? Spiller probably will. Rachaad White probably will. Damien Pierce probably won't get drafted. But if you're the question about drafting, I would draft Isaiah Spiller first, Rachaad White second, and then hope Damien Pierce is on the waiver wire and I can pick him up if I absolutely have to.
Pat, I feel sorry for all of our listeners for having listened to that just horrible advice. Damien Pierce is going to be drafted. I'm sorry.
In redraft leagues?
Yeah.
But it's not that, no, you drafting Damien Pierce doesn't count. Does not count. All right.
We're gonna end on a disagreement here, Pat, because I think you are 100% wrong, and hopefully we get some other people to weigh in on it and let us know who they think should be drafted.
That was a good one. That was a good question.
Yeah.
Jay, good question. Good question, Jay. All right. Let's wrap this up. Don't forget, use the code FACTS at Underdog. Get a 100% deposit match on all deposits, or I should say your first deposit at Underdog, up to $100. And use the code FACTS, FAQS, at fantasydata.com. Fantasydata.com. Receive 20% off your subscription purchase. Seth alluded to some of the stats and some of the data that you can find in there. Highly recommend that premium subscription. 20% off with our code FAQS. Now, make sure you give the show a follow. We're at the Fantasy Facts on Twitter. Seth is at FF the At Home Dad. I'm at Dynasty_Pat. Joseph, thank you for the questions. Appreciate your input. Appreciate your watching. Thanks so much, everybody else, for watching. Good night, everybody.
Hit the subscribe button and the notification on button. We go live on Tuesday nights. Join us. We'll put any of your questions into the show because that's what we want to do is have that discourse and engagement, just like our now best friend Joseph. Thanks, Joseph.
That's right. All right. Good night, everybody.
Catch you on the flip side.